Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host, Maqbool, with you at BTB World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is in reference to what is going on between Pakistan and India, and particularly, of course, in light of the regional elections taking place in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And of course, especially important is the way that we need to move forward and how the situation is going to evolve. As part of these rallies, we've seen the defense minister and earlier also the home minister speak about possibilities of dialogue with Pakistan. This is, of course, something that Pakistan has put forward on every platform, has spoken about again and again, of course, based on the fact that Kashmir is a very, very important and integral issue to such a dialogue. But we have seen that in these election rallies, we've seen Congress at least put forward a stance where they're willing to talk to Pakistan. But at the same time, now we've also seen the BJP leaders speak about the fact that they are also willing to talk to Pakistan, conditional, of course, according to them, as per what is going to be the way forward in terms of the Indian alleged involvement of Pakistan in Kashmir and in other parts of the country. And this, of course, puts the entire situation or the entire offer into perspective as well. While, of course, at the same time that this is being said, there are tons of other things also being said towards Pakistan, which blame the country for involvement of terrorism. And then, of course, in terms of the way that they're going to engage with Pakistan. And that's important, especially in terms of understanding what this offer really means and whether or not it can actually lead to a proper, substantial conversation between the two countries that centers around Kashmir and that takes the dynamic forward. So that's going to be our focus in the first segment of the show today, where we're going to try and understand what really is the stance of the BJP and, of course, other parties in India, and what will be the dynamic moving forward and what Pakistan's perspective in this regard is and should be. In our next segment, we're going to be taking a look at a very, very important and unfortunate issue, which, of course, has been unfortunately part of many societies, including Pakistan. And we have seen that this has now occurred in Gujranwala. And this is important, particularly in terms of the way that we take a look at these cases and the way that we understand them. A number of minor girls in the city have been raped, and this has been done by accused of course, by a teacher as part of an informal education system in the place. And so it is, of course, important to note that this was a place where the girls went for education, and this was somebody who they trusted. And so this is also important, particularly in terms of how this case is then being taken up by police and the interrogative authorities, and the way that the investigation is continuing, the way that it's putting the children and the parents in a tough spot, making them uncomfortable and making the entire process even much more harder for them to bear. But at the same time, while we talk about that, it's important to also talk about the attachment of shame with such matters and how that leads to its own problems, and how that then again protects those who are the rapists and those who are the criminals. And so we're going to talk about all of these issues, particularly then in light of this, and then what needs to be done by both the investigative and police authorities, by the parents, and then, of course, by people also involved in these informal education systems for the protection of our girls and our children. That's going to be our focus in the second segment of the show today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal. And for our first segment regarding Pakistan-India relations, we've also been joined by former ambassador Mr. G.R. Baloch. Thank you very much, Baloch, for joining us and being a part of the discussion today. And I'll start with you in terms of how we take a look at the current dynamic between India and Pakistan, particularly in terms of what has been going on in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, especially since 2019. And now, once we are seeing these regional elections taking place, of course, not really adding much value in terms of the wishes or aspirations of the people of the occupied valley. But I want your take, particularly in terms of the way that the leaders are talking about the possibilities of dialogue, and in what manner and in what perspective and what context they are doing so, and how we are going to be taking that. So how do you take a look at these statements coming in from BJP leaders, and what do you make of them?
Thank you for this opportunity to again join you, ladies and gentlemen, on this very important subject of Kashmir. Kashmir remains an important issue in terms of our foreign policy priorities, and we are committed to the Kashmiri cause since independence, and that is, we always say, is the unfinished agenda of the partition, which is again codified under the UN Security Council resolution, several of them, and of course also into the solemn pledges of the Indian leadership at the highest level of the Prime Minister at that time. That be the case, we have seen what has been going on in the last about 2 decades, a bloody kind of war between the bloody war in Kashmir that we have witnessed, the spilling of innocent blood of the Kashmiris, and of course they were forced to take up arms when they saw that their life was becoming difficult, when their honor was not like protected, because we know there were hundreds of cases of rape by the occupation forces, disappearances, extrajudicial killings. So all that then pushes their society to take up arms, and this is what exactly happened. Now the elections that have been announced by the BJP government again is considered by those who believe that, in fact, you cannot trust trusting a party which is based on hatred, which is based on which philosophy is otherness. Its philosophy is inventing an enemy if there is none, even then. So I think from that point of view, those who have the perspective of history, especially of BJP in mind, and I think in Pakistan also, most of us do not believe these statements, and we believe that these elections are a facade, a farce, and just to justify their continued occupation, their continued suppression, and of course show to the world that as if Kashmir has been integrated, that the people of Kashmir are ready to accept the hegemony of India or occupation of India, and that they have now kind of reconciled with that drastic action that BJP government did when it rescinded the special status of Kashmir and revoked that special article of the Indian Constitution of 370. So I think from their point of view, this is not a big event from their point of view, but it is being made to be a turning point. But I see some in fact, positives and negatives both. Negative in the sense that there is now Kashmiri society itself is divided. They've been able to create this wedge. There is a pragmatic segment of the Kashmiris, those who want to live along the life, and they believe that they're assuming that if the local elections are held, at least the local services are granted or given, at least that siege would become comparatively easier. But on the other hand, we have this separatist or pro-independence segment of the Kashmiri society who do not trust the Indian government. So I think these elections could, in fact, have to some extent created that wedge between the two. And the other drawback with these elections is that whatever, whether they are manipulated, whether they are engineered, but India would be, at least to some extent, portray these elections as an indication of the Kashmiri people to go along with the imposed regime that or the political order they have imposed on Kashmiris, the BJP government. So I think Pakistan will be advised to, and I think the government has rejected these elections as not being a substitute for the solemn pledge that has been made to the Kashmiri people by the UN Security Council, and as well as by the leaders, as well as by the history. So I think these elections are for sure not a substitute for all that process. But I think what we have to be careful that India, if it would definitely try to portray these elections as a substitute for that, and that everything is okay. But I think we have to show to the world the reality of Indian occupation and also the real intention of India as to what they want to achieve. Yes,
Right, but
Sana.
Ambassador Saab, with regards to the possibility of dialogue between Pakistan and India, how do you foresee the dynamics of that actually happening, and how will we factor in the issue of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, because that's integral to us in this conversation, and especially now with the 2019 move taken by India that revoked the special status. Was that not a prerequisite for us to engage in dialogue with India?
And
Yeah, definitely.
Ambassador
Yes,
Baloch, if you can
yes,
take
please.
my question as well with that,
Please.
that is related to. Don't you think it's a matter of ulta chor kotwali ko dante, when of course we are seeing that the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, he is simply saying that if Pakistan can guarantee us that they will not carry out any terrorist activity in India, then we are ready to talk. What things they are talking about? What on earth they are thinking about Pakistan? I mean, they are the ones who are involved in terrorism in Pakistan, and here we are. I mean, once again, they are blaming us for their terrorism.
Yeah, let's take it. The first question was by Sana, whether the possibility of a dialogue. We know it, and we know it very well, as even now being as observers, analysts, that all the difficult questions have ultimately been solved on the negotiations table. So that is a belief which we share with, and the government of Pakistan does share, I'm pretty sure about it. And our leadership has been saying that we really want to engage with India on Kashmir, but Kashmir is the first agenda item that must be tackled. And tackled and there's nothing new to be discussed. There is a proper legal, internationally covenant about it in the shape of resolution of the Security Council, the pledges made by, as I said earlier, by the leadership at the highest level of India. And so I think there is, what they have to do is first, of course, to restore the status pre 2019 of granting its special status, I think. And there is a flicker of hope, because the Congress leaders, at least once I heard one of the Congress leader claiming that if they come to power again, they will try to give back the status of Kashmir as it was granted earlier in the original constitution of India. So I think there are two thinkings now. What actually, when BJP it revoked the special status, they thought the world will forget about it, the Indian public opinion will forget about it, Pakistan would just reconcile, the world would reconcile, but that is not happening. And that is the reason that even these half-hearted invitation or readiness to talk, as Mr. Faisal said it, about Mr. Rajnath's offer of talk about it. So I think even that seems that some kind of a is breaking. They have seen the resolve of the Kashmiri people. It is not us alone, but of course it is our consistent support to the Kashmiri cause. But essentially, if at all there would be a difference, the difference will come because of the persistence, perseverance, and sacrifices of the Kashmiri fighters who are fighting. They continue to fight, and they continue to deny that comfort to India that they'll accept the subordination and accept the hegemony of India in the illegally Indian occupied Kashmir.
Right. And Faisal, this is important, particularly when we take a look at what you've also posed in terms of the way that Pakistan, of course, has put forward the kind of evidence that exists in terms of Indian state-sponsored terrorism, and the way that the world also understands what really is going on. But whatever that might be, or however true that is, we still, of course, see things very differently in action. And so because of that, we've seen that it is, of course, 5 years later from 2019, there have been repeated attempts that have taken place in different parts of the world, and not just in Pakistan, and actual incidents of terror that have been carried out. But at the same time, this is the kind of rhetoric that we're hearing from the leadership from the Indian government as well. And so I want your take particularly particularly in terms of the way that Pakistan then positions itself internationally also when India is putting forward this narrative or its leaders are talking about Pakistan in such a way. The government, of course, is engaging with the occupied valley with these sham elections and other changes to the demographics of the region with draconian laws and whatnot. And so in all of this atmosphere, how does that put Pakistan in a place where it can exert its own influence, where it can put forward its own stance and make the world hear it?
Yes, and it's a good question. And of course, when it comes to Pakistan, the expectations from Pakistan, as the world expects from Pakistan, the Muslim world expects from Pakistan, and that is what Pakistan has been, doing. We always prefer peace. I mean, two nuclear nations having nuclear arsenals, peace is the only resolve, and there shouldn't be any war, there shouldn't be any conflict. And that peace, of course, we seek as Pakistan, we seek the resolution 47 passed in 1948, and that is there, the plebiscite. Of course, it's not my matter, it's not Indians' matter, it's the matter of people of Kashmir. Ask people of Kashmir what do they want, and that is what United Nations asked them to do. But of course, they won't do it. Instead, what they would do, that everyone, I mean, a month ago, I was told that there will be, the turnout would be shown in between 50 to 60%. Why do they do it? Because they portray to the whole world that, oh, look, people are okay with it. People are okay with our, election system. So they are accepting our rule in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir with the help of what? With help of 1 million troops, active troops, which are stationed in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and day and night they are of course silencing the voices out there. Whoever raises his hand, they are there to chop it off, and this is what has been happening. If it is so transparent, the election is so transparent, why none of the international media was actually allowed to get in there? No one had an invitation. Forget about, they trying to portray it as transparent. It can never be transparent. Of course, even the world knows their design, that every now and often they go for an election just to show to the world that yes, there is a sort of system, a governance system in place out there. There is a judicial system which is in place out there, but they of course forget to tell people that we are talking about the land where right on the top there is a man called, the sort of position which holds every power under the Delhi, that is lieutenant governor, who is actually ruling over them. And when we talk about these two families, Mufti family and Abdullah family, both of them, they are their stooges. And there is another one now, Engineer Rashid. He is a stooge as well. They portrayed him as if he was in the in the prison, and he was the one who was a voice of the people, and suddenly just before the election he comes out of the prison on the behest of the Indian judicial system. This is not the case. Whoever sits with them and of course negotiates with them that this is the power share if you can give me, and this is the number of people if you can make them part of the police, part of the administrative setup. Of course, they are the people who are his own supporters on ground, and that's what his whole agenda is. His agenda is not that the abrogation of 370 and 35A should be reversed. This is not going to be reversed. He knows, India knows, and this is a fixed match. Of course, they have their own empires, they have their own stadium, they have their own players on the both sides, and this is what they have been, of course, staging. Every time when there is an election, there is someone of a sort of a fixed match or a Noora Kushti guy they come up with. This time around they came up with that Rashid, Engineer Rashid, and this would continue. They will never take out or give a breather to Yasin Malik. They will never do it with Asia Andrabi. They will never do it with the family of the next leadership of Sayyid Ali Gilani. Why? Because they speak about freedom, they speak about Pakistan, and they speak about plebiscite. This is the narrative which they want to shun in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and that is why 1 million active troops are there. They are not there for merely having a holiday or whatever. This is what they are doing, and this is what they will continue to do. Why they are coming up with these kind of this is a very funny situation, Sana, which I am going to talk about.
Okay.
Why at this hour they are talking about, oh, we should extend the hand of peace towards Pakistan? Why they are doing it? Because there is a dilemma which is being faced by India as a military, because it had been, of course, relying upon procurements from Russia, and Russia right now is actually delaying their procurements. When they are delaying their procurements, of course, on ground the situation is they haven't got enough. If in case there is a war or a battle with Pakistan or with China, of course they are not in a position to fight against Pakistan.
You
this
really,
is what
you really think so?
Yes, this is what I think so, because the new arms which they are getting from the Western countries, especially from France, they don't have the battle integration.
Is that enough to deter them from war?
It is, and that is why every time when they are in trouble, they have 2-3 people who have maskeen faces. The people with the maskeen faces, poor faces, they bring them on the screens and they ask for, oh, we should be talking about peace and we should
right.
At the moment they don't have capacity to fight against Pakistan. This is why they want to talk.
Right, Faisal, I believe we're all well aware not to take things on face value, but Farrukh, I want your perspective also in terms of course, what Faisal has said, but also in terms of whenever we talk about engagement, whenever we talk about any sort of conflict resolution, there is, of course, at the end, the dialogue, the negotiating table. Right. And I understand what the ambassador was pointing towards, and I understand how inevitably that is the end. But I also want your take on what happens then if one of the parties keeps asking for the dialogue, keeps being the sensible one, makes the right moves, and the other one keeps on refusing and goes on and does whatever he or she wishes to without any consequence. What really should be the strategy then moving forward? Is that still the sensible, wise move to just keep on looking at the negotiating table?
Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to compliment Faisal on his passionate, expression. Especially, I was enjoying his body language when he was physically touching. Also, yeah, but I, after that passionate expose, I want to go for a dispassionate one, right? First of all, you have to understand who's saying what. India's Interior Minister actually said no dialogue with Pakistan. That was said in Jammu and Kashmir, right, Amit Shah. A former party chief also, they call it Adhyaksh, but he is no more Adhyaksh of the party. Then Rajnath Singh, another former Adhyaksh of the party, who's Defense Minister, today actually delivered that speech, which was full of caveats, as you pointed out at the start. But I actually want to open this thing up and tell you what are India's national and international compulsions right now. The kind of situation we are facing, particularly BJP, which is barely keeping its head above the water right now. Narendra Modi, and this is the beauty of trying to actually have it both ways. You end up annoying everybody on, on every side. So domestically, there was an election after which Modi lost his majority and he had to have allies, and those allies are proving to be a handful themselves. But now there are, elections taking place, or in one case about to take place. In 4 places, elections are taking place. Jammu and Kashmir is one place where they are holding elections in 3 phases. Then there is a state called Haryana. In Haryana, they used to have government for past 10 years. And just before the June elections, there was a coup in the party, in the government, and there was open call to Congress to come and take over the province, right? And Congress did not oblige. Now the elections are taking place because of 2 horrible things that Modi government has done. First, farmer response to farmer protest. A lot of farmers come from Haryana. And then the wrestler girls, the way they were mistreated, they were also from Haryana. So in Haryana, situation is such that Modi, when he himself went there, his tent was smallish one compared to the previous ones, and they couldn't even fill that. And that is not all. Their own local leaders are failing to campaign. They are holding protesters and events at hotels.
Yeah.
Why? Because they are afraid of the pushback, and they try to actually, politicize a Dalit leader from Congress party who is very important, Kumari Salja, and they thought that she is going to join them. Any Dalit who is there would know that it is political death to join Modi's hands, right? So she today actually declared that she is not going to. Jharkhand is the third state. In Jharkhand also they are holding elections, and there is this tribal versus local divide, but even there it seems that Modi's government is going to lose. Finally, Maharashtra, the second most populous province of the country, and there too it seems that people are fleeing BJP and they are joining NCP, right? With that kind of state of affairs, if they lose all 4 elections, what is going to happen? RSS is going to ask them to step aside. And Nitin Gadkari, who is transport minister, has openly said that Congress and India Alliance actually recommended that if he wants to take over, they are going to vote for him, right? So with that kind of domestic compulsion, they would love to have an external diversion. Now, what is happening? As I said, you can't have both ways. Modi ji actually went to Russia. There, because he was there, there was an objection that came from Ukraine. He immediately rushed to Ukraine. Because he was in Ukraine, Russia got annoyed, and because of that they had to send their Ajit Doval there, and he has practically mewing before President Putin. And they did what, Sana? Usually such meetings are not broadcasted, but they took out a clip and they aired it, right? Because they did not trust the Indian side.
Yeah.
Now Modi is in America. In America, what happened was that he was about to meet President Biden. Just before that, they actually called over Sikh leaders from America and met them before meeting Modi, right? So that is, there can't be any bigger insult. And then there was a lot of hoopla about the fact that Modi was in New York yesterday, and that at that time Kamala Harris was also there, and there was this rumor that they might meet. And an Indian friend actually called me and said that there's a possibility. I said, of course they are going to meet, but does it mean that she is going to support him, right? That is not going to happen. And Trump says he's my friend, he is coming to meet me, and they had to actually push him back as well. So with that kind of affairs, China, you have angered, America, you have angered, Russia, you have angered. Regional parties, any country where you had any friendly government, they are changing tack, they are changing. Sri Lanka just elected a pro-left leader, right? With that kind of state of affairs, they would love to, start something new. Of course, it can't be war, and there's an SEO summit taking place. So there's always a chance that Modi will eventually come, and this is a preparation. But I don't think that they will be able to handle it, because on both sides there's so much pressure inside their country that Modi doesn't seem to do anything correctly. Every law they bring, recently they were taught religious madaris reform bill, umpteen other bills, and they had to retract it, which was unknown for past 10 years. So with that kind of state of affairs, I think that India, particularly Modi, benefits a lot from coming to the table. But will they have the temperament to do it? I think when you have been spewing hate for 11 years, it becomes very difficult. We still have to wait and see what becomes of his return, because there again at UNGA usually they ask us not to mention Kashmir. If you don't mention Kashmir, maybe we are going to resume dialogue with you. But I think Pakistan is, going back to your original question, Pakistan seems to be having fatigue also. We have invited them, but till the time you don't clear your point of view, whether you're coming or not, I think nobody is bothered. We have our own sideshows here.
Of course.
We are so occupied with our own stories that we couldn't care less about India.
Absolutely. Ambassador Saab, I also want your take in terms of what is going on within India and how that affects our dynamics with the country, because of course we have different stances coming from parties like the Congress and then of course the BJP. Historically, we all know the kind of things that they have engaged in or the acts that they have carried out. And so because of that, of course, it's difficult in terms of how we move forward with engagement. But do you really feel that in terms of any change in the internal politics of India or any sort of ruckus that is being created in the political atmosphere of the country, there's any difference also in terms of what India is to Pakistan and how these two countries interact?
Yeah, I think I would like to draw your attention and of the audience and our friends sitting with you that I have another perspective that why India certainly has become a very peace-loving country, talking to Russians, talking to Ukraine, trying to offer its good offices for the peace, trying to be nice to the Kashmiris, and even offering us to talk to them, obviously with a caveat, as you said yourself. I think what is happening is that there is a resolution which has been prepared by the US for the inclusion of permanent members in the Security Council. And we know that India has been long desiring to be one of the members in the Security Council whenever it is expanded. So whatever details have come out, that there are only 2 African countries which at this point of time are being considered, and US has indicated that it will support. So I think I see them even cozying up to China. You don't see that rhetoric now, which was there like 6 months or 1 year back. So I think this is more a posturing to give that, like, a good face to the world that we are a responsible kind of country trying to seek.
Let me ask you a follow-up question regarding UNSC and permanent membership. You must have seen the interview given by, a statement given by former UNSC chair, President Ambassador Mehbubani, who is from Singapore, who said that UK should vacate their seat in favor of India. Do you think this seems to be some kind of desperate measure, but is it not actually going to annoy the British?
No, actually, no, that's not going to happen. Why did he give this interview? In fact, we had a very good exchange with one of my friends, and it was something different, actually. He is probably one of the contestants for the next top job at the UN. So this part of that posturing, you see. So I think we will not discuss that because it is his own personal, and I respect his views. He's a very learned scholar. But coming to the Indian effort, so I think we should also look at this from this angle, that whatever questioning now we see India behaving, or at least trying to show to the world to be a responsible country and a responsible power regionally, and trying to restore its lost glory. Once, yes, it did have respect within the region, within the world, being a leader of the South and so on and so forth. Of course, they continue to pretend to be, but which is not actually not accepted as such. So I think India has internal dynamics as well as external dynamics, which have because they modulate. One thing I think, as they say, you should give give devil its due. So I think they have been they handle their posturing and their international relations with comparatively better finesse than I think us. I mean, I would say are many other countries. So let's
Thank you very much, Ambassador Saab. We've taken your point. Thank you for joining us and sharing your insights with us on the debate. That's all that we have from the first segment. Of course, we'll be talking about this relationship as it evolves and continues. But now we're going to move ahead and talk to the viewers with regards to a very, very important aspect that unfortunately is present in our society and is something that is concerning to all of us and something that we really need to look closely and very clearly at. We're going to now take a look at this report before we start discussing it.
In a heart-wrenching incident from Gujranwala, Pakistan, 5 minor girls have allegedly been victims of a horrific crime. Their stories, shrouded in shame and fear, reveal the deep scars of trauma they endure. The report said that in 2023, a total number of 4,213 child abuse cases had been reported from all 4 provinces as well as Islamabad Capital Territory, Azad Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan. A gender divide analysis of the data showed that out of the total reported cases, 2,251, 53% of victims were girls, and 1,962, 47% were boys actually. The reported age showed that children were most vulnerable to abuse in the age group of 6 to 15 years, in which more cases of boys than girls were reported. The father of one of the victims shared his anguish, stating that questions posed during investigation leave their families feeling humiliated. He described how after the assault on his daughter, he often travels to Lahore with affected girls for medical examinations and facing repeated inquiries that only deepen their pain. The accused, a canteen operator at a non-formal education school, is charged with multiple counts of rape and child pornography. Yet, the investigation process is burdensome, despite his confession in front of police evidence against him. The 12-year-old victim is reluctant to return to school after her trauma, aggravated by the school's dismissal of their complaints. City Police Officer DIG Ayaz Salim noted that sensitive questioning can distress young victims and families report inadequate psychological support during this time. As this tragic case develops, the pleas of victims and their families for justice and protection highlight the urgent need for strong support system to safeguard the vulnerable in our society.
Highly condemnable, of course, and raises very important aspects of what we need to do about the situation. Faisal, I'll take your viewpoint first with regards to what has been going on in the country and the way that our children are being raped, are being targeted by these criminals. It's very, very important for everyone to talk about this, firstly, and to understand it completely in terms of what it's about and what needs to be done about it, because more often than not, it's our understanding of the problem that then also defines the solution. And because of that, we end up in solutions that are not appropriate because we don't really understand the problem itself. And so, Faisal, I want your take in terms of what really is the matter at hand at the moment. We have children that are being raped in schools by teachers, by canteen operators. We have people who are not even safe in their own houses, which is very, very unfortunate. And as the report has pointed out, this is all across the country, unfortunately. This is all across the world even. But in terms of what Pakistan needs to do about it and the issues that we face, particularly in terms of protecting our children and then making them feel safe even after the incident, because even unfortunately that is not provided. What particularly about these cases do you think needs to be corrected?
Yes, and now obviously when it comes to learning, every individual starts learning from the cradle, and to me I think the first institution is the mother, and of course the parents, they play obviously a pivotal role when it comes to how a child should be of course be prepared. But in our society, I don't know why we still consider it as a taboo to of course talk with our kids. I mean, I personally I want to obviously tell here that I talk to my kids about these things so that they are already prepared. What is sort of action that they need to there and then stop from anyone other than of course the parents, and that's how of course that's the only way to of course in a friendly way to talk with kids. But when it comes to
but we are not talking about molestation, we are talking about rape.
Well,
So what can a child do?
every rape starts
What
with the
can-
molestation.
No, no.
When-
What can a
when-
child do in protecting himself when somebody powerful is there
when
to rape them?
Of course, I was coming towards that, Farrukh, if you could allow me.
Yeah, I just wanted to question. I hope
Because
you allow me
every
questions.
rape, it doesn't happen very first day there will be a rape. Of course, it starts with somebody trying to garner a sort of
But it could,
action,
Faisal, honestly.
it
It
could.
does.
But what I'm saying is that this you can't simply ignore this fact. The molestation is of course a reality, and that's how it all starts. In this particular case, of course, I'm pretty much sure the very first day this guy wouldn't have been daring to commit the same crime, but of course
But
he
that's
created.
not the point, Faisal.
he
I understand
created-
what you're talking about, education with regards to what children need to understand, and I understand that space needs to be there for children to be able to
Yeah.
talk about it, but similarly the space for victims to actually share their
Yeah.
stories as well. And
Let
we're
me-
talking about situations where victims have already undergone a circumstance that has been beyond their control.
Exactly.
Right?
But
so, yes.
Sana, when we talk about, of course, those who are the criminals, I mean, criminal justice system is already there, but the application of that system, in which what we see is, normally when these kind of people they get caught, what happens to them is, I mean, somehow they are killed by the police themselves, or while they are trying to running away from police, they get killed or
No,
get
but
shot.
Faisal, most
But-
of them actually never get caught. They never get killed.
No,
they
they
never
do.
get punished.
No,
Actually,
even
most of the cases are like that.
in previous
What's
cases.
problematic is how the victims are treated.
No, in previous cases, of course, the people. If we talk about the motorway case, the people who were involved, all of them, they were caught and they were, of course, brought to justice in some other way.
Sure,
but they
because
were
the
brought to
case was
justice.
highlighted.
The
yes,
case
but
was
there's so
highlighted.
many that go through the same
Worry
thing.
should be that this has happened in a city. A city, of course, it is considered as 7th or 8th biggest city of Pakistan. And what about the rural areas? In rural areas, of course, this must have been happening because where there are schools very far from their own villages, like couple of miles or 3 miles or 4 miles, where kids are actually walking there and coming back, and of course they are vulnerable to all of these things. What I'm trying to say is that there should be a sort of social policing by the society itself as well. We all need to be vigilant more and more about whoever's around us who's involved in these kind of activities, or we can sort of predict
Right,
that
I
he could
understand
be
your
involved.
point, but why
overall,
social policing, Faisal? There needs to be actual policing, actual criminal
Actual
cases,
po-
actual punishments for the crimes, for criminals to be treated as criminals and not the victims. And I'll take your perspective first.
Sana, one line.
We're short
Sana,
on time.
I very quickly actually want to rescue what Faisal was saying. Usually policing takes place in a different manner. It usually takes place after the fact. So social policing and some kind of social surveillance is most welcome, because
I get it, sure.
we should also play our responsibility, keep our eyes open, right? But regarding overall situation, it kind of reminded me of a very torturous episode that I remember when I started my career. I had to write a report about child, prostitution for IIO, right? I was part of the team. And we went to bury a mom, and there were kids over there who were actually part of this. And their story started with somebody being raped by somebody they knew, possibly a relative. And this is the biggest problem here. One thing, most of the rape cases are not even reported. Why would not be? Because something that happened. I know that it happens in South Asia, it might happen all over the world, but something even worse happened in Pakistan, where you had Hudud ordinance. And because there was a misapplication of that, the first thing that law said was, if somebody comes and says that I am raped, the police would say, okay, you have confessed to sex, so out of wedlock, so you better sit down and you are going to be accused till the time you are proven innocent. So our mentality hasn't changed, Sana. We still blame the victim. And this is why all this gender sensitivity training, trauma training, all of this to police has been going to waste.
Yeah.
We need to have this serious conversation in the parliament of the country, because it seems that in the end we end up talking about everything under the sun, but not these issues. These are our children. We have abandoned them for too long. And I think that while there should be social policing, there should be social vigilance to ensure that no child is molested, raped, kidnapped or done anything by anybody that is not supposed to be there, and this kind of trauma should not be imposed. But then we need to have the policing system also corrected. Without that, you're going to have more trauma. And of course, this story about a father who is saying that he feels shame because the kids are exposed to that kind of questioning. And by the way, there is one justice, honorable justice in the Supreme Court, she stopped it. Otherwise, we used to have two-finger test also.
Absolutely.
With that kind of things going on in this country, and this is all left behind by the colonial Raj.
Absolutely.
With that kind of obnoxious things happening, I hope that in coming days we can create a better, more harmonious environment for our children.
Absolutely, and that is extremely important. Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal. And I understand what the parents are going through, and perhaps it's something we cannot even imagine what the victims and what the parents of the victims feel, and it becomes such a distressed environment for them when, of course, the interrogation makes them even more uncomfortable. But I would really sincerely hope that we can take this shame and put it all on the criminal instead of the victim, and instead of ourselves, the parents of the children, because that's not where there is. The shame is only in the crime and in the criminal, not the victim. That's all that we have from the debate today. We'll now see you tomorrow.